Hey, Jen.
Hey, Alex.
Have you ever wanted to get more into depth with your dominant seventh chords?
Yes, probably.
Have you ever wondered how fitting 17 exercises into a 7-day week would feel?
Well, I think that's a trick question.
Oh, yeah, it might be, because this is the Practice Odyssey. This week, we will be practicing the Taffanel and Gaubert Complete Method the Flute, the Method Complete the Flute, depending on what language you speak.
It was first published in 1923, and it's essentially was a collection of exercises collected by Paul Taffanel, who's a famous professor and conductor and flute player from France at the time. But unfortunately, he died before he could finish it. So it was completed by his student, Philippe Gaubert, who had been working on it with him while he was alive. Now, Taffanel intended it to be this epic treatise on the history, theory, and the practice of flute, and it's considered as one of the most comprehensive and well-known flute technique books around even today. We just did the 17 daily exercises, which is only one section of this enormous treatise which spans over 200 pages. And there are heaps and heaps of blogs and sites everywhere on how best to practice and work through them.
So at the front of their method, the authors gave advice for daily practice. Section 1 was notated as scales. Section 2 was notated, depending on the day, as either arpeggios, trills, sustained notes, intervals, thirds, and so on. And Section 3 would, depending on the day, be either a study or a piece. Then, from the advice for daily practice suggested by the authors, we determined which of their 17 exercises fit into which section. So, therefore, Section 1 would include exercises 1 to 4, and Section 2 would be 5 to 17, depending on which day they had notated which should be performed.
So there were 6 days given, assuming that you take the 7-day was a free day and off. So day 1, we tried to figure out what they meant by the exercises listed in the neat little table at the front of the book. So we had our best guess, and this is what we came up with. We would appreciate anyone to jump in with any comments below. So section 2 on the first day, Monday, was arpeggios on the common chord, which we thought were exercises 9, 10, and 11. Day 2 was trills and sustained notes, so exercises 17, and then the sustained notes with dynamic markings included in the book. Day 3, arpeggios on the dominant seventh, exercises 12, 13, and 14. Day 4 was thirds and sustained notes, exercises 15 and 16. Day 5 was intervals, exercises 6, 7, and 8. And day 6, arpeggios on the dominant seventh, chromatic scales, and sustained notes, so exercises 12, 13, 14, and number 5. And day 7, you could collapse in a heap and have a day off. And a margarita.
Which was my favorite part.
Yes, it really was, wasn't it?
Or
yes.
margaritas.
Oh my gosh.
And with all of that being said, let's go ahead and dive into our week 1s. How was your week 1,
How was
Jen?
my week 1, Alex? How was it? Okay, I'm going to put it into one word of summary, and that was like long. So long. Oh my gosh. The first day.
Well, and tell us a little bit of like where you are too.
Yes.
Like
where am I? Yeah, we're actually doing this podcast in 2 separate locations. I'm currently kicking about in Phnom Penh, which is in Cambodia in Southeast Asia. So that's where I am. Where are you, Alex?
Oh, I am currently in a small town in southern Germany, just about 2 hours of Stuttgart. So, yes, I can speak German, and the Germans don't laugh at me too much as well for my...
Anyway, yeah, Taffanel and Gaubert. This thing, I did not think it was going to be this tough. I think it almost... I feel a little bit broken after it. I feel a little bit destroyed in spirit.
Yeah, well, because, we do these exercises, at least, which I'll get into more, but, like, we grew up doing some of these exercises, at least for, like, number 4. And so when we were looking at doing this, I was like, oh, yeah, it'll just be breaking down a little more intensively what we've been doing before. But then,
Intensively is such a great word. Yes, intensively is the word. I don't know what the editor's thinking with 1 to 4 being a warm-up. The warm-up the first day took me an hour and a half. I don't know anyone who warms up that long.
Yeah, wow. So an hour and a half for your first day's warm-up. Well, that is intense. I think the kicker was
the what is it, number 3, where you have to do every single scale. Every single scale, and it just takes forever. I have to say, after the first day, then I shortened it. I chopped everything in half. So the numbers 1 and 2, I just did 2 repetitions of each, which actually I quite like. It keeps you kind of mentally on the ball because you got to be always thinking 1 key ahead of where you are, which is really nice. So I kind of liked that as a bit of a mental warm-up as well as a finger warm-up. Number 3, I just did...
Like a cup of coffee.
Number 3, I just did 2 keys a day, and I was like, yep, that's all I got. That's all I got. And number four, as you will hear in my audio diary, I'll let you listen to my audio diary. Here it is. So, exercise number 4. What is this, like day 5, day 4? Day 4. Definitely, I find this one, maybe it's probably controversial, but definitely this is my least favourite. It goes on for a really long time. That was day 4 of week 1. I think that was when I broke.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is such a controversial point too, Jen. I mean, so you don't like number 4.
I don't like number 4.
I mean, that's the one that I think that the most information's been written on. Whenever I, go into, that was the first one I started with, and that's the one that usually professors say, oh yeah, go ahead and do this exercise on number 4 because it cycles through all the keys and, it goes up and does it in different, scalar patterns. So
I know, but then I think... The issue I have with number 4 is it doesn't do a full range. Like, you're just doing from the tonic to the tonic. Like, you don't do all the scales up through full register, like up to your C, down to your C, or whatever. That's why I think I prefer number 3, even though it was super long and I chopped it short. But, because then you were practicing the scales except all the ranges. And then you could put in your minors as well, like you could do it in minor as well, which I guess that would be deviating from the plan, so probably not allowed. But I don't know, that was the thing I found about number 4. It was just really long.
And I think that's totally, I'm totally in agreement with you. And the one thing that kind of annoyed me, because I had a similar issue too with number 4, because if with number 3, it does the scales starting on each note, like C, D, E, F, G, and going the full range to the octave and then the second octave. Yeah. But and I read somewhere, I can't find it at the moment, but number 4, he said you could, after practicing it, take it up the octave. However, that wouldn't always necessarily be feasible, I think, because definitely some of it goes up to G3, which is that wonderful G above the treble clef staff. Yeah. And as far as I know, there's no way to play it up there. So it's not, I mean, you could make it work, but it kind of takes away from how number 4 is supposed to be nice and easy to run through. So
do you think that's the deal of why? Because like the rest of it's brutal, so I don't know really why it would be easy. And I don't know, like when it comes to scales and warm-ups, I guess one of the things I'm looking for is efficiency, like the maximum impact on my technique for the smallest amount of time, because I'm chronically time poor. I don't have time to spend an hour and a half on scales plus all the stuff which I've got to be learning on top of it. I don't even remember a time at uni when you're there like studying full time where you had the luxury of that. You had so much repertoire going on. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh yeah. No, I'm definitely going to talk about that too. I had some issues with that as well. So, for sure. Oh my gosh.
But I have to say, with number 4, how I found it really helpful was I cycled through all the articulations, every single key. I switched an articulation for every single key, and that way it became actually more of an articulation exercise, which I actually really enjoyed. And I found that really helpful, and that was pretty challenging. So, number 4. But anyway, that was my impression of
Part
TNG week 1. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
How about you?
I don't understand. Whoa. Yeah. Well, I had a slightly a similar experience, I think.
Really?
I mean, to be fair to Taffanel Gaubert, which we'll probably break down a little later, is that we decided from the beginning, okay, we wanted to try and get all 17 of these exercises in, and how can we do that based on like where they were placed in the book, which is why we believe that 1 to 4 would be the warm-up, because he says scales, and the scales officially begin with number 3 and number 4. So anyways, we can. I'll discuss that later. But yeah, so my Monday and subsequently, I think it was the days after. Yeah, section 1, which would be exercises or numbers 1 to 4, took me on Monday an hour and 45 minutes to finish.
Holy cow!
And then I continued to, unlike you, which probably would have been the better thing, I continued to do just section 1. With number 3, A and B, every day, all 12 keys, and doing it, both in either 4/4 or 6/8/2/4. And
Alex,
yeah, it was.
I bow to your persistence. That's
I appreciate
amazing.
that.
That's amazing.
Yes. However, as I said earlier, I'm here in Germany. I'm still trying to figure out how to find a practice room here because I'm quite new to this city. So if we have any German listeners who know how to search for a practice room when you're not at university, please leave a comment or let us know.
The perpetual problem.
Yes. So this is what happened halfway through the week. I think it was like Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So I have a nice little audio diary we can listen to about that. So day 3, and about 1 hour in to EJ3, definitely my neighbor upstairs was a bit worried. Actually, it wasn't even my neighbor upstairs. It was one up and over. And he was a little annoyed that I kept repeating and it never changed at all. So asked me to stop. So, anyways, we will see. He asked me if I could practice the Nachmittag, which means in the afternoon. But yes, so first time this year a neighbor has asked me to stop. Thanks, EJ3. So yes, that was my experience with TJ3. I've been living in this new apartment for a few months now. Practice, unless I'm out of town, I practice pretty frequently. However, TJ3, that's what broke the neighbors. So, and
TJ3,
yes,
it does it.
A very nice older German gentleman, which so who just asked me if I could stop just going up and down scales because it was quite annoying. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So after
that's the yes. Oh my gosh. I mean that begs the question, like the perpetual question, which has plagued flute players since time immemorial, I believe, is when are they going to invent a flute mute so we can practice without alienating ourselves from our neighbours?
Oh yes.
Every time.
Absolutely.
We move.
So, yeah, after this, luckily I had talked to you as well around this time, and you told me that you had maybe switched from doing all 12 scales to doing 2 or 3. So from that point on, I told myself I would only spend maximum 20, 30 minutes on that part of my warm-up, and then also I would try and focus on really changing the articulations. So it maybe sounded a little different And since then, he has not complained. So that was my experience with section 1. It was actually not too bad. Some days I have to say, though, just to try and get through it, I would just go quite fast. And I really feel as though sometimes I would put like trying to finish it, that precedent over, does my sound really ring? Does it?
Yeah.
Because it was just so much and trying to get through it all. So, because like you said, it's a warm up and it's taking an hour and a half, and there's nothing broken up in there. There's no long tones. There's no harmonics. There's no whistle tones. There's really nothing except, and the beginning too. It's either like they don't throw in. I had originally tried to do all the articulations in order as well, which was probably not the best decision to make. But then, for the first few days, everything's slurred. So then there's no double tonguing practice. Anyways, we can get into that later. And I changed it up a bit for week 2, which we can get into later. And so that was kind of my warm up. Usually I took notes quite religiously the first week and then kind of started estimating after that. But I think quite consistently, section 1 would take at least minimum 1 hour a day. Like when I cut back,
holy moly.
Here's one that was about 45 minutes, but usually it was quite long to get through, just the section 1.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And you just hit a point where you're just like, oh my gosh, and you just start beasting through it. Mm-hmm. And all your you kind of stop listening to yourself, you're just moving fingers.
Right. I think my my mental bandwidth was just exceeded at points, and it just needed to be refreshed. Sorry, technical people who might think that's the wrong terminology, but it was a lot. So
maybe it's like the marathon of exercises. It's all about getting the mental break and pushing past it.
I know. Oh my gosh.
What a thought.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that was kind of my section 1. But and that didn't change too much between the weeks. It was usually pretty consistently quite long. But maybe we could start talking about your week 2 and maybe section 2.
Week 2, I think, yes. I'd shortened section 1 to a manageable half hour to 45 minutes. So I wasn't going quite as crazy.
Excellent.
And because I'm preparing for a piccolo recording, I decided to mix in piccolo with these exercises, which potentially was a little bit insane. But actually, I discovered that, yes, the scales in the intervals exercise, they're like really good for piccolo because they're all in those really awkward notes, in the middle of the piccolo where it tends to crack and break the E and the F and the G and the D and the A. Mm-hmm. Maybe I just break a lot of them. But all those like little problem areas in there, it's just like little exercises all across those notes and like getting all those like little intervals perfect. So I found that really, really useful. And another one I really was loving was the trill exercise.
Oh, yeah, that would be number 17. I have not been practicing.
Yeah, number 17, the trill exercise. I love that one. I just never really practiced my trills. I found it quite illuminating, especially the third octave where you just have to really think clearly about what trills you were using and the pitch of them. Mm-hmm. And, I really liked it. I think it's going to make sight reading trills in the third octave like million times easier.
Oh yeah,
it was really good.
Absolutely, it was really good. It was really great to try and figure out how to do the very high ones because I don't think I've ever really spent a lot of time trilling high B3 to C4. Yeah, like that's that
was a fun one to nut at. I just was like, this way is it? This way is it? Because you normally just I've always just had to do a trill in a piece, and so I've learnt it for that piece, but then I've never actually consistently practiced it as in part of my technical warm-up. And I thought it was great. I'm like, I think I've got to keep this one and add it into my weekly cycle of exercises. Yeah, I really liked it. I'm trying to think of any of the other ones which were horrendous. Oh, the scales and thirds. Again, the scales and thirds, where you had to do every single key known to man, and then it was the fourths and the sixths and the sevenths. Anyway, yeah. Again, I just did 2 keys a day.
Oh yes, I had started doing that as well because it just takes so long, and the neighbors, you have to watch out for them. So,
oh, the neighbors, I know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, that's so bad. Anyway, so that kind of, so I did enjoy T&G. It kind of, I can see, like, if you can play through them solidly at a steady metronome, then, like, you are on point with your technique. But it just, I kind of walked away thinking that it's not a short-term project to do those kind of exercises. Like, it's something you got to commit to doing for months, maybe even a couple of years, just to really get it flowing really, really easily. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, or maybe it's the editor's expectations on the time of scales.
Oh yeah, which we can definitely delve into for our verdict too, because there's there are things to discuss about that. But yeah, for sure. Did you have any audio diaries concerning your second section?
It was more kind of just like how much I loved the trills. Oh. I love the trills.
So I really like the trill exercise because it makes you really think about it, especially the third octave trills, really having to think about them and which fingers work.
Jen, it sounded like you really enjoyed those trills. So I did enjoy those trills.
Yeah, they're really fun. So, and I'm sorry again about number 4.
That's okay. That's okay. The articulations did help enormously with number 4. It actually made it interesting. I have to confess, though, I would kind of like hit my limit of, like an hour, and then I would just, if I was halfway through number 4, I would just like, and done.
Oh yeah, no, I found for me for number 4, I had a copy of Michel Dubost's scale game.
Yeah.
And it's basically a list of many ways that you can do number 4 to change it up. And days that we had an exorbitant amount of material in section 2 for number 4, I would usually just choose one of the ones that I could do quite quickly just to nut it out and get it done.
Yeah.
So because sometimes number 2 would just also take quite a long time, and yeah, it was just a bit much. So yeah, I feel you. But hey, you did it, and then week 2 was done.
Week 2, 2 weeks of Taffanel and Gaubert completed. Anyway, so how did you find the second week?
So second week, like we discussed earlier, it was a little easier to get through section 1 now that I'd allocated a certain amount of time per day. So instead of taking an hour and a half, it was taking about 45 minutes to an hour. My note-taking in my journal also went down drastically. In the beginning, I was noting down minutes and seconds, and definitely by week 2, it was like around this time. So just notating what tempos I was doing, the exercises or the articulations. So that was a little different. But yeah, for section 2, I really enjoyed doing the arpeggio sections, not the dominant 7th sections. I found that quite helpful, and then also how they did it with the different articulations. I don't think I've ever really focused on doing all the different styles of articulations on all the different dominant 7ths before. Yeah. And then also during week 2, my sister was visiting us. And so
that's right.
My sister is not in Germany. She currently lives in California, and she chose the next best career to a musician. She is a physicist.
Yep.
And she got to hear a lot of my practicing during this time. And
was she also a fan of
we got
number
to
3?
talk. Oh, she actually didn't mind too much. It probably helped that I gave her noise-canceling headphones. But,
Maybe you
but
should
yeah,
buy
I
a
have
pair
a
for your
little.
neighbour.
I know. I was thinking that, but yeah. Here's a little audio clip of me talking to my sister about the Taffanel Gaubert and her thoughts on it from like an outsider's perspective on hearing these scales every day for what usually took with 1, 2, and 3 at least 4 hours, if not longer.
Wow.
But yeah, here are some of her thoughts on it. I'll go ahead and play that for you
cool.
now. But could you just say like what you thought this one sounded like? It's like a practice.
No, I mean it sounds like kind of like Iyengar yoga, where it's like do this pose, do this pose, do this, and it's not like actually enjoyable, right? Like, but I'm sure doing this for 2 weeks will be useful though, just to like know what it feels like to go into like robot technical like flute mode.
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm conditioning for a marathon. That's what it feels like right now.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure it'll be useful.
where it's just like sometimes you just gotta run really hard and like be like, okay, whatever, and then some days you like maybe take time and do intervals and like, you know, start to get your endurance up, and then sometimes you just have to actually run like 5 miles.
Yeah, I guess this misses the art of it.
Yeah,
It's just very technical. But the technicalities are super important too. So, but you don't want to just become like a technical flutist. You want to be a musician.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was not the solution you needed to go for. Yeah, this is better. Grazie. Also, did you know?
And if you missed that at the end, that was definitely a wine clink because we had a bit of wine at this point as well. So.
It's the only way to do it. I liked what
yes.
I like what you guys are saying though in that recording about it being a marathon, and also how she compared it to yoga, and it was just like, okay, do this pose, and now do this pose, and do this pose, and it wasn't like really very fun. You didn't have time to enjoy it. I really liked that observation. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really good too. And she does have a little bit of outside experience. She played oboe when she was in high school, but she has been out of the music world for over a decade now. So it helps that she has a little bit of a grounding in that too. But yeah, it sounds like we're kind of leaning more towards verdict territory.
I think you should go first. I'm going to throw you under the bus.
Oh, excellent.
It's your verdict.
Please throw me under the bus. Yes, so I think, you know, this book, I mean, it's definitely a staple. I think that everybody who takes the flute seriously or practices, takes it semi-seriously, or maybe not seriously. I think it is a book for serious musicians. Should definitely read and do some of the exercises in this book because it's kind of, it is an anthology of all of these technical studies that can help your flute playing get better. However, I think the way that the authors decided that it should be broken down in these sections 1, 2, and 3, that's great. However, I feel it needs more, or it needs a little further explanation. For example, in section 1, besides it being so much to play, there are no long tones. You don't get sustained note tones until section 2, which in this method you're already an hour and a half into your practice, and also it wasn't every day, which I think might for me personally, maybe other people can definitely. I'm sure there are individuals out there that can do long tones every other day and it's no problem. However, for me, it's definitely I have to do them every day. So, but then, you know, if you turn one of exercises 1 to 4 into long tones, then it doubles the time. So like, you know, for practicing, which would always be a reason I would not want to do it. So I would say, so my verdict would be, as a resource, this book is 2 thumbs up. It's got tons of stuff you can work through if you're having issues in a piece. As a weekly exercise, if you're wanting to beef up your technique in a short amount of time, yes, go for it. And you've got the time and you've got the forgiving neighbors or a soundproof room that no one will mind you practicing in. Go for it.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If your husbands are okay chilling in the bathroom for hours on end, or your roommates, then I'd say yes. However, if you are, if not, I would definitely recommend just maybe not doing all 17 every week, or breaking it down, but then also adding in something with like a bit more, like a little more slow practice. And you know how much I love my fast practice. Like, it's great. I love technique, but I really missed it this week. I was not a fan of only doing long tones. And just long tones, or sustained notes is what they called it, just every other day for a week. That was So my verdict would be use to your own discretion. So, and maybe check with a teacher if you are still studying at university or in high school and listening to this. So definitely check with your teacher before launching into this. So
yeah, it is pretty epic, isn't it?
But yeah, Jen, how about your verdict? What do you think?
My verdict. Look, I agree with. Yeah, I entirely agree with you. I came across this interesting blog. Can't remember who wrote it. That's terrible. But they said that what they do is they get their students to cycle through one of the exercises except for number 17, every week. So you spend 1 week on one of the exercises and you just work on mastering it. And you cycle through each of those exercises once a week. So you're doing it in like 16-week. Which, so you're kind of treating it more, I guess, like a study than, say, technical work or an etude, which I kind of liked because it gave you time to like maybe nut out some of those tricky corners and really get mastery over it. And
because you're spending a full week on it, not just every day.
You're spending a full week, and like you say, you've got that luxury of time to be able to do slow practice on some of the trickier corners, which, like you said, like I super missed slow practice. Like there didn't seem to be any space in the practice regime to have that slow practice for those particular finger combinations which just sometimes don't stick and get a bit fluffy, you know, which for me is the thing. So I really so I liked that suggestion a lot. I should really find the name. I'll put it in the comments below. But so I like that suggestion, and then every 16 weeks, like, you notice that the tempo had got a bit faster and a bit faster and a bit faster, and so that's how your technique was building. But, I mean, that requires a heck of a lot of a commitment. Like, that's a really long-term goal. So he would do it over their 3-year undergraduate degree.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, after 3 years, like, you'd be a total gun at it, wouldn't you? But
and you would have totally nutted it out and gotten everything, under control.
Yeah.
And,
So I feel like I think marathon is the word for it. Like, it's a long-term project. It's not really kind of like something you go in and kind of use to kind of have a holiday, like a technical holiday.
Yeah, I'd say if you have, but not even 2 weeks.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a relationship.
Yeah. It is. It's something that you would want
not a fling.
Exactly. It's not a 2-week fling. This is not your trip to Ibiza over the summer. This is your Jude Law romantic comedy set over the span, a British comedy set over the span of a few months, if not longer, years.
If not longer.
And something that you would definitely learn something new about every time that you come to it as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But the good thing is there are so many resources out there just
That's
helping
true.
break
That's
it
true.
down. Although
Yeah.
I did find a lot of them were only applicable to, they were written for number 4, but I think the same idea could be used for a lot of the other ones, just breaking down how you could practice them, mezzo forte with double tonguing, mezzo forte, four slur, double tongue down,
and I mean, like, I have to say, I must confess, I haven't read all 200 pages of his treatise, so maybe previously in the book there have been suggestions for how you would practice up your technique, and so you could apply them to these 17 daily exercises. I guess the problem is with the books, you don't get those. You don't get the first 200 pages of this treatise. And
exactly. You just get the 17. So
exercises, and you're left with this kind of page of black notes staring at you.
Staring into your soul.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Yes.
Just so many semiquavers.
It definitely scared my sister when she saw it. She's like, that page just gives me anxiety, Alex.
Something terrifying about semiquavers. That many semiquavers on a page. My golly gosh.
Oh, yes. So... But yeah, so verdict. So if you had to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, you liked it, you didn't like it, something like that.
I think thumbs up for a relationship, thumbs down for a fling.
Okay, excellent. I think you could not quantify it any better.
Yeah, there we go. That's my verdict on it.
All right.
Requires work. Yeah.
Yeah, it does require work. So, all right, then I think that concludes our first ever podcast. And first one about Taffanel and Gaubert's Method Complete, the flute, focusing primarily on the 17 exercises.
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping it's only downhill from here, really.
I think so too. So yes, listeners, if you liked what you heard or you have a suggestion, please. Our email address is going to be thepracticeodyssey@gmail.com. And then hopefully by our next podcast, we will also have a phone number if you would like to call in and tell us your thoughts, feelings, and any questions you have about what we've just recorded. So, but yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
I know. Thanks so much for listening. So,
yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, until then, take care. Bye.